Alrighty guys, I guess we'll go ahead and get her started. There's a few people trickling in, we'll let them walk in, but I want to welcome everyone this evening. I want to make sure that everyone is grabbing some pozole down in the hallway. We've got a hot pozole brewing out there, delicious, from Sabor Real here in Taos. And so we're gonna give them a shout out as well. They're always doing our catering, they do deliveries, and they've got great food. So check them out downtown, a little farther down from Michael's Kitchen. Anyway, thank you guys, for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. I see a lot of familiar faces, and I see some new faces that we haven't seen in a while. So it's great to see everyone and the interest that everyone still has in TCEDC. I'm gonna give a brief end of the year overview of TCEDC, and then Lucas has a great Matanza update for us that will really, close it in and really bring us to what these 2 years of havoc have brought us to. So again, thank you guys for the support, always being there. When TCEDC was getting ready to close its doors, and one of our previous board members is in the house today, so Mr. Dan Maroney knew exactly where we stood when we were getting ready to close the door, and we were given our walking papers and we were basically all laid off, and we kind of looked at each other and said, where is TCEDC going to go from here? Do we shut the doors? Do we keep going? What is it exactly that we can do? Week later, pandemic was announced, and so COVID, shut the whole country down. And so we were, for TCEDC, fortunate enough to receive funds, from the pandemic. And so that kept us going and that kept us alive. From that point, I'm happy to report that it was 3 years of really cleaning TCEDC and really trying to figure out what the next step for TCEDC was going to be. Today, in 2025, we're 15 employees, 5 professional contractors, 2 subcontractors, and over $500 million into gross receipts tax put in locally. We have brought in over $4.5 million into the local economy. We've made sure that our employees get fair wage, that everyone who is here is family and gets taken care of. So from coming to the realization of let's shut our doors down, we are thriving. 2026 for us will definitely be the year that we take it into the next plateau. Kitchen is up and running again. We basically were really struggling with the culinary program. We have a culinary professional now, Linda Silverman, that has taken us into the new era. So kitchen, the Taos Food Center is open for business again. We are getting businesses in there again. It's starting to thrive again, and we are looking at being the center for commercial kitchens in northern New Mexico. We were looked at as the model of best practices. We were the first commercial kitchen in the state. We're the model of best practices for many years. When I took over the directorship, I said, we're not a model of best practices anymore. We need to start back down at the beginning. We need to erase the record, and we need to rewrite the story. So we started that. We've rewritten the story. The story is as great as it's going to get for the kitchen. 2026 will be the thriving year for the kitchen, and that's what we are looking for with the Matanza. Matanza has had its ups and its downs. It basically is up, down, and sideways. And so we, everyone in here, I think, has been here pretty much throughout the listening sessions we've provided. So you know that we received seed money, and we've received additional money throughout to be able to keep the Matanza going. But it's had a lot of struggles. It's basically gone through a lot of red tape, and Lucas will bring us into exactly where we stand with that. But if it wasn't because of TCEDC staff, again, all 15 of them, and you guys, we wouldn't be here, okay? The ranchers, the farmers, the people who are just here for support, who maybe not even use our services, but are here for support and counting the numbers, I thank you guys. It has been 5 years of struggle, but we're going strong, and it's because of you guys. And so I want to thank each and every one of you. I want to welcome you guys to come in. You know, we're open for tours all the time. We finally are back where we needed to be, which was at the top of our game. We can open our doors to tours. We can show what we've done and what we've accomplished within this time. 2026 is no longer going to be a surviving, it's going to be a thriving year. And so again, thank you to all of you. And without further ado, I will let Mr. Lucas Salazar take it over. He has brought us to where we are at with the Mobile Matanza, and will be with the Matanza program for its initiation, for its intermediate, and its success. It will be because of you guys that the Matanza will be in its thriving era as well. So thank you guys.
Thank you for that, Mercedes. Is this one sounding? Can you hear me? All right? Yeah. Okay, I would say with one caveat to what she said, because it is true. I'm committing to this project, the development, through the initial implementation, and through its period into success. And essentially, I want to be here until we figure out a succession plan for it. But that's all given I don't have a nervous breakdown in the meantime. And I'm going to give you guys some insight into some of the things that can be kind of frustrating in my job as the project developer. That's my official title for this role, is the project developer, transitioning into operations manager. So that is really my strong suit. That is what I did for 15 years. I guess I did develop a meat processing facility too, at a much smaller scale and on the fly. So in a way, this is really nice. We have a lot more resource. We have a lot more players. And you know, in 15 years of experience that I'm bringing to the table, I think is really helping this to develop in about the best way it can for the resources that we have. But here's what I'm going to kind of run you through. I kind of am going to continue to like introduce myself a little bit. And I realized when I was preparing for this presentation that I actually did a little vlog series of my business, and I was like, what a better way, a very sensory-rich way to like show you guys what I was involved in my project in Colorado. Some of you have been there. There's a few people here who've actually been there, but most of you haven't. And then I'm going to give updates on Matanza. Then I have a couple just little quick ones, which is to clarify something on the NM Grow program, which might be something some of you want to participate in over time. And then I was fortunate to attend a webinar on tallow production, and I think there might be some people in here who will have some interest, and maybe even at the level of, what do I do with this extra fat? I generate this fat, I don't really have a market for it, what can I do? And maybe I can help direct some people to create some value out of that byproduct oftentimes. And then what we're gonna kind of break this up with some Q&A. I don't want to wait all the way to the end because it might get a little jumbled. But we'll also stay at the end for whatever people, I'm basically here for as long as people are having questions. But then we're going to pass it off to Abby Warman, who was the director for the Beginning Farmer Rancher program. And she did an awesome job last year facilitating that pilot program for that. And now we're excited for the year coming up because we learned a whole bunch, and it's just going to be nothing but improved. So that's the agenda for today. So I'm going to go and start. That's me with one of my initial crews. This picture is probably circa 2016, 2017, something like that. And no, I did not employ the Lorax. That is Tony Pettis. And that was an amazing employee. He came from California with 20 plus years of experience in meat slaughter. And man, did he help us put animals in the cooler. And then this was Michael, who had also some 20 years of meat cutting experience from up in Colorado. Had settled in Fort Garland. He was literally commuting from Fort Garland to Manassas every day for the job. And then Patty Warren, that was a volunteer. She volunteered. She's involved in all sorts of economic development stuff in the San Luis Valley. And she wanted to give, I think she gave us 2 days a week, half days, just help us pack and so forth. And that was completely pro bono. She bought a pig from us every year that we gave her a steep discount on, of course, for her volunteer time. So let's go ahead and check out what Salazar meats look like. I think this was 2018 or 2019. Hey everybody, here outside Salazar Meats to give you guys a tour of the place. I figured that made sense in one of our introductory vlogs to help you guys see how this place is set up. So I'm going to spin you basically through the flow chart of the whole plant, and I'll probably come back and do some edits and give some more information. But here we are at the beginning, which is where people drop off their animals for slaughter. So we have a few corrals in a sweep system that Temple Grandin helped us to kind of conceive and create. So here's a look at all this. So we have all that sheeted metal there that helps the animals from getting too freaked out with people moving around and just being distracted. And then of course the animals come inside. So here's the next room. Over there is the knock box. And so we'll kill the animal with a captive bolt stunner, and then we'll hoist them up and go to work on them. And I will do more detailed vlogs in the future about all that process for sure. And so here's some of our stainless steel in here, everything washable up to USDA specs. Our nice saw for splitting the animals and so forth. And then I need to put on my frock before we go into the processing area. Oh, just got my frock on. And so then the animals come through this big old door into the cooler. And right now, we only have these 3 beef that are in here aging. But today, as I'm doing this shooting on Wednesday, our kill days are typically Thursdays. So this evening, people will come and drop off animals for boarding for slaughter in the morning, or they'll come in the morning. So while this looks a little barren right now, by tomorrow about midday-ish or so, it's going to be chock full again with carcasses. So that's what it looks like after adding the kill from the previous day in here. So that's we added 10 pigs and a beef, big old beef. The beef hung over 1,000 pounds. So live weight, that thing was probably like 1,700 pounds or somewhere thereabouts. Having a big sausage making day to day. So all these totes are different clients' ground products that we will be adding spices to, and then maybe linking or not, depending on what they ordered. So let's see how that looks coming into the processing room. So we have a few kinds of processing going on today. Tony here is grinding pork for various linked or bulk sausages. And then we have Emiliano over here, who is racking snack sticks. So this is a 100% beef snack stick from a local client. They are doing this under USDA inspection, so we have a lot of record keeping that's being associated with these sticks. They'll get smoked here in a moment, and they will get cooled. So we have this other little cooler. Which, as you can see, right now just has some summer sausage in here. That's also under inspection, so quite a few records associated with that product. And so then, yeah, we'll smoke these sticks, and they will come in here to cool down. And this allows us to keep a perfect separation between our raw product and our cooked product. And so there's the summer sausage we had in here before. And we also have the beef sticks. And then we have bacon. So this group of meat will get all packed today. So then we should have this thing cleared out for the weekend, and then next week we just get it hard and start cutting on those pigs and do a similar process again. 300 pounds of product that go for sausages like these. Turkey, you only need maybe about 60 pounds of raw product at a time. Okay, so once the product moves out of there, then we're into storage mode, right? So we have this freezer which we recently installed. It's a 22 feet long by 12 feet deep by 10 feet high freezer. I'll show you what it looks like in there. And so we keep this freezer at about zero degrees, and it's a really strong freezer. It has quite a few coils going that really cool it down well. All the racks, as you can see, are these wire type racks where you stick a bag of meat on that. At least when you do it like at 1 ply high, it'll freeze that meat down quite quickly. And then once it's frozen, then we'll stack them. As you see, some of these clients are stacked and organized. And so this is a pretty good space to store things. And if we run out in here, then we can take it outside where we have a few, another freezer space going. So I'll let you guys get a peek at that. So here we are outside the plant, and you can see these box cars behind me, and they both have the potential to freeze. We're only using one now, as that's enough space to deal with what we're trying to do. We also have this cool little freezer trailer right there, our Salazar freezer trailer, which we use for deliveries. And we can also, in a pinch, we can also use that, flip it on and use that to hold more inventory. So, got our parking lot here, and just kind of some outside the building. I'll show you our customer receiving area, which is here. So this is where we usually meet people and can answer questions and deal with, the administration of different clients. And that's really about it. The only other thing to mention, really, things you're probably not so interested in, like our office and bathroom and so forth, and just this main warehouse area that acts as a dry storage for spices and vacuum bags and so forth, and kind of just with the rest of our equipment. Like here's our nice bacon. Here's our nice bacon slicer, for instance. That thing can tear down a side of bacon in about 25 seconds or so. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll probably be doing some edits, adding a little bit to this video, but that helps save you a trip from coming out, but you're also welcome to come out if you are a prospective client and want to talk more with us and actually see it for yourself, not just on the video. So thanks so much for watching, and please like and subscribe, and we'll hope to see you guys again soon. Thanks, bye. I feel like that's a pretty effective way to show kind of, that ended up being, that was at about a 10-year commitment into the project at that time. And then, yeah, we had five more years to develop it. So when I look at that, I was like, oh man, we didn't have our vacuum stuffer yet. That was my favorite piece of equipment that we developed into. Like when you're dealing with a piston stuffer that can only hold 50 pounds at a time, and then you all of a sudden get to this continuous fill thing that can hold 150 in the hopper, but you just can keep dumping it. You never have to back it down. I mean, little things like that, when you've been doing that for 10 years, and all of a sudden you get to that next level of technology, you're like, wow, So, anyways, let's get now more into the Matanza stuff. So, those of you who have been watching this have probably seen this exact drawing, because I've presented this a couple times, and this does help us understand the basic idea. I'm going to show you there's been some changes, but this is the basic idea of the Matanza. You see phase one here with the hanging cooler and the windmill cut and wrap, and that's out there. For anybody who's paid attention as they're driving right by Taos Mesa Brewery and then the new water district buildings that are coming up, right across the road adjacent to the county ops, there's two really new looking box cars, and that's that and that. And let me just show you real quick. Has anyone noticed those out there? They're kind of unassuming. They're just these like bricks, right? But they're pretty fancy. When you go inside and really look at all the components and everything they made them with, this Fiesta company is expensive, but it is Cadillac components. So while we spent a fair amount of money on this stuff, it's something that's not going to depreciate anytime soon as far as like major breakdowns or this. Like it's thick metal, it's steel reinforced everything, everything washable and just super well reinforced. So the craftsmanship is as good as you can get. So those are out there. Then the next phase, and the next phase actually gets us to operations. So the next phase means we have a freezer, because we have to be able to cool it down and store it. And then we need basically space for a USDA inspector to have their office. We need to have some kind of administration, and we have to have restrooms and all that stuff to fill some code, right? So we have to have like ADA compliance and all of that kind of stuff. So what we're going to do though, the modification we made here, just to make sure the money, so we have a $600,000 grant in with the town that is being administered right now. We've spent $100,000 of it, and that accounts for this freezer. So we have procured this. We haven't ordered it yet because we need a time. We have to know where the time is going to be because this company doesn't have storage space on site. But it's paid for. And then you're going to see the loading dock. We're going to get into this next phase, and we're going to get this building is going to be moved, and that's what's going to allow us to have our employee rest area, all the administrative stuff that we need. So with that, that's the basic skeleton to where we can operate out there while being fed by the mobile Matanza. And then the next phase, which is the phase that I'm most excited about, because while the mobile Matanza is a neat unit and it has its place, it's also it's an inefficient way to slaughter these animals. And so the thing I'm most excited about is this slaughter floor that we developed with a builder in Colorado, which essentially takes the same idea of this boxcar technology, but they were willing to do a double wide for us. And the huge advantage here is now all of a sudden, this is enough space where we have 4 bays going. So we can slaughter 4 beef at a time and be working that. And so all of a sudden, when you're stuck in that single wide, Fiesta wants $1 million for that unit, and they only rate it to do 15 in a day. And that's kind of like a long, hard day because it's so cumbersome to move these animals through. All of a sudden, we can do 30 in a day, which matches the scale of the drip cooler we have here, and we can do that in less than a day with a crew of probably like 6-ish. We're probably going to be if we want to actually do 30 in a day. And so that's just an incredible efficiency that we have designed that's going to help this project through. So this is our new contractors, living design groups. Some of the folks might know Doug Patterson and his firm are our design team now for this. And so this is what we're submitting for our special use permit right now with the county. This is what it's going to be. So it's going to be, the mobile Matanza can come from this road, or there's going to be access through here. But either way, it's going to back up right there, drop the animals off. That hanging cooler can hold 50 carcasses at a time. Then we'll have the cut and wrap, then the freezer, then the loading dock, and that's where we'll load out, and that administrative building. And then here's our simple little leach fields septic solution that we have. And so this is what's nice right now about this next phase of development and using the mobile Matanza, is we don't have to worry about the advanced wastewater yet. As soon as we get that stationary slaughter there, all of a sudden this whole quadrant of this is like a 2.5 acre subdivision. The whole lower right quadrant here is going to be dedicated to the media for that advanced wastewater system. It's a pretty massive system, and that's the initial contractors we had. That was the main oversight, right? So they give us this drawing, but they never contracted the wastewater engineers to help them understand the actual space requirements for this. And so once we got those people hired, all of a sudden, now it looks like this. I have to scrunch things over to the west side of the plot. Okay, now looking way down, hopefully not too far down the road, but this is the future vision, right? So we have this one hanging cooler here right now that can hold 50. Now, we have this slaughter floor that can do 30 a day. We have a drip cooler that can meet that 30 a day. So theoretically, if we did that 5 days a week, we can turn 150 carcasses. This is beef. So let me just do the conversions real quick for pigs or for smaller. So like I say, we have 4 beef on the floor at any time here, working with beef. That's going to mean 6 to 7 for pigs, and that's going to mean 10-ish for lambs that we can be working at any given time on that floor with how it's designed. So we can put loads of animals into the cooler every day, and then the way that these stressless are designed is you just punch out so this would be the first one, right, that we would punch out because it's not going to interfere with the mobile Matanza design. So boom, all of a sudden we do that and our capacity is up to 100. And we're still using the mobile Matanza. And then if we get to that, to meet that demand and that volume, then boom, we'll punch in another one. And these even could come other directions. Like they don't necessarily have to come. There could be a solution where it goes in there and then pops out another. But we always have to be thinking about how the mobile Matanza is still going to interact with this, because to my mind, the mobile Matanza has its place, which is bison. It is maybe someone who's really, their marketing plan requires like an on-site harvest. They want to say that we're not trucking our animals. Now you're going to pay if you want the mobile Matanza to move, because before, let's be honest, anybody who knows what's going on is there was a ton of I mean, it wasn't pro bono exactly, but like highly subsidized or dangerously subsidized services being rendered by the mobile Matanza in its history. We can't do that anymore. We have to, like an example of this is there's an elk farm in the San Luis Valley near Del Norte. Those folks want to work with us. They would love it if we could take the mobile Matanza there and harvest a bunch of their elk. I think that's a great partnership. Now, we're going to have to charge them for the gas on that, the wear and tear on that, and then if it got into multi-day, because we're shipping our talent, our team to Del Norte. I mean, rig like that, I can't imagine we're getting there any faster than 2.25 hours. And so imagine that, you're like needing to pay people this time and they're not really working. The USDA inspector is going to be an issue if they need it USDA inspected. Like all these things, like it's expensive. To do mobile slaughter when you're really going anywhere that's not just right down the road, it gets very expensive very quickly. And so we're going to crunch those numbers and we're going to stay open to working with people who aren't necessarily right here, but they're going to see the quote for it, before we would agree to doing a contract. So, yeah, I think that's basically, this kind of can show, right? We can expand with the hanging coolers, and then we can expand with the cutting and wrapping space modularly like that. And then, the freezer, we don't have quite like that, and that'll be an interesting one. What I'm really hoping within this project is the product, when we buy local beef and we aggregate it and create a label, that is a large part of fresh market, or a fresh market to the greatest extent that we can. So literally, those animals are being packed, and they're just going through that freezer onto a truck, onto a cooler truck, and going straight to La Montanita Co-op, and going straight to SIDS, and going straight to all these regional buyers that are really excited and have been waiting anxiously for us to get operational. And this is what the organization chart looks over, basically as we grow by cooler size, by 50 animal increments based on beef. So in the beginning, this is like 8 employees roughly. And in the very beginning, I might be kind of taking a couple of these positions and stuff. We're going to see who in the community wants to come on, who we don't need to train, who we're going to need to train, all that stuff. The HR thing, that's going to obviously be a big concern in the initial phase. And then, as we grow, this is how I think we're going to get some real specialized positions to come in with the stepping up to 100, which I think at that point we're going to need an inventory specialist, and it's going to start getting difficult to just organize everything with how much we're moving through. Marketing and sales director, solid waste specialist. And then each time we go up, we just have to add a couple slaughter techs. We have to add, that amount of firepower to just get through the cutting of the meat and everything. And then hopefully once we get to, you know, to the 150 scale, then by that time we have an assistant manager, and I would say probably even an inventory assistant. That's just going to be a big piece of it, just managing all of this meat coming through the system. And then to give you guys a sense on the numbers. So this income expense that I'm sharing with you guys is with the assumption that we're doing 18 beef per week. 18 beef per week in the aggregation sense. So that means that we're buying and we're essentially making ground beef out of them, and tenderloin is all we're going to do. Very simple. It's very fast processing, very efficient in terms of the labor going in. And then 12 per week for the custom. And again, this is all equipment. I'm sorry for the folks who here are lambs or pigs or whatever you might be. But you can imagine when I'm talking about a beef unit, we're talking about 2 pig units, and when we're talking about lambs or goats, we're talking about more like 3 or maybe even 4 if you're bringing in smaller lambs and goats. And so, but it's just for simplicity's sake, this kind of gives us, to be honest, the bread and butter of this is going to be cattle. And so this is how it would look as cattle. So if we're getting 30 through a week, which I don't think is unrealistic at all, as soon as we have the stationary slaughter down, I think we're going to very quickly be able to do a lot more than that. Then that turns into, is this really focusing enough? Let's see.
Could you zoom in at all, Lucas?
This one might be hard, yeah, let me see what I can do there. Too much might be a little steep. Can you kind of see the numbers there? Yeah, cool. So if we're doing the 30 weeks, so it's 18 a week from the aggregation and 12 a week from the custom processing. You know, yearly that's 2.6 million in gross income. And I basically have this thing all kind of smart spreadsheeted out to, you know, we have the assumption on our labor, and I kind of went real high on that because I'm trying to make sure that when we think about break-even points, that we're conservative on it rather than ambitious on it. And so I actually have that written out. That would actually be 9 employees, you know, and we're talking like, you know, the management having something like 80,000, between 80,000 and, you know, I think this number already by the time we get there is going to be at like more like 60,000. So management kind of positions being between $60,000 and $80,000, and needing about 4 of those to begin. Although we may be able to office share, at least in the beginning, with the administrative power support that we already have within TCEDC, and I think it'd be very wise to do it that way. And then, you know, I have 5 positions at 37K there, but I think by the time we start this, that's going to be more like probably 40K, or maybe we have some part-time people and so forth. But I don't think we're going to get away from having a payroll if we're doing this sort of volume, you know, much outside of $300,000 to $400,000. And it's actually more like $500,000 when we're considering workman's comp and taxes and everything. So if we do this volume and we can't get any better with our cost, our break-even point on the ground beef's cost is at just over $6. But like I say, everything I've done on this spreadsheet right here is being really conservative, and I think that we can beat these assumptions in real life pretty much. So just so you see all the categories that we have to account for here in our expenses, right? Payroll, of course, workman's comp, you know, all the taxes. We have to have lab fees for the USDA, insurance for the mobile unit, Insurance for the commercial liability in case someone were to get sick or something on your product. The equipment, and that's just like owning a car, but for us, it's like, we may have a piece of equipment. So in our dream world, we're gonna have a roll stock packaging machine, which is this long skinny thing that can really package the ground beef in these perfect little bricks. You guys have maybe seen them in the retail store. And to be able to get that real efficient, you want to add these auto labelers to it. And that is like, entry is like $170,000 around there. So that's gonna be like the most expensive single piece of equipment we have. Gotta ensure that, because those breakdowns can cost, $10,000 for, oh, they have to come in and replace this module on it or whatever. So we're gonna have insurance on all this equipment, and that's gonna cost something. Just our maintenance, have to put something significant there for that. Our supplies, packaging, label boxes. But yeah, the big ones are labor and the livestock. But then take this from the perspective of what we're trying to do, from the economic development perspective, right? 1.8 mil, this is stage one, this is not unrealistic for the capacities, the technology, everything we have out there. That's how much money that we're kind of capturing here with our local ranching community and not having to get sold off to then all of a sudden go down the other supply chain, right? So I think that's pretty significant. And knowing that this is a very reasonable scale for this to operate, it can operate at greater scale, and then we may multiply this basic idea by 3 out at that location. So I'm seeing this as a $6 million just on that line. So we can keep $6 million of cattle, of livestock in this region here, creating about 25 jobs. So yeah, I'm gonna look down here. That $6 and 4 cents has us basically breaking even. So, but this is a fun thing. There's no propriety here. If anybody wants me to send this to them and they can play with it or modify it for their own things, I'm happy to send you this file. That's one of the really cool things about, I think, TCEDC in this project, is that everything we do is completely public source. You guys can use us as employees as resources, the things that we create as resources, et cetera, et cetera. All right, let's see, where are we? All right, so yeah, I have a few more categories to get through, but I think on the landfill project, I think this is a good time. If anyone has any specific questions on that, let's give that at least 5 or 10 minutes before going on to the next themes. And then we'll come back at the end too, but we gotta make sure we get through everything. I'm sure some people, especially because of the weather, might want to get on their way sooner tonight than later, but are there any questions on the landfill project? Yes, ma'am.
What is it? Could you review what it is?
Is that what you just talked about? That's,
Oh, just now.
Yeah, I'm just referring it because that's what we're internally, when we need to distinguish between, because we have this refurbishment right here,
Yeah.
and that's kind of, we're talking, we use 1021 and we use landfill to distinguish the two, so. Yeah.
Did you get the situation ironed out with the property record?
That's been the biggest.
Presentations I went to, you were talking about the.
We flip it on. Oh, it is?
Is it right? Is that good? It's still.
See if that one works better.
I can
Is that
yell.
one not working? But I got I'll just repeat the question is, did we resolve the issue with the legal description of the property is a way to say. And so this has been about a 6-month saga, roughly. And all I can tell you is that it's like 99.5% resolved. because there's two pieces to it. There's the survey part, and then there's the D part. And so I was so relieved about a month ago to get from the town managers the email that said, we got it. And I was about to go like scream from the top of the building, right? And I start sending that to the designers, to our building team, and then to the engineering team for the wastewater. I'm like, check it out, we got the documents, boom, boom. The survey's good, there's no problem with the survey. The thing with the deed, well, the deed is legit. It still is representing the large tract that it sits under, and it's not specified to the 2.5 acres. And so that's been my more current harassment to the town management, is to get that resolved, because the engineers and the designers, they're gonna go ahead and try to submit a special use permit in the one case and the advanced wastewater treatment application for the permit in the other case. And we'll see. They'll end up having the levels of pushback they have, but I'm trying to be ahead of it and making sure that that deed is in fact what it needs to be. And I think that'll be something that is resolved concurrently with the eyes and the desks that need to be looking at those documents. So I don't think it's gonna be anything that plays it up at this point. But Rudy at the county is saying that's a 2 to 3 month review for the special use permit. And they're saying it's 3 to 4 months to review the advanced wastewater treatment. And these are literally just like 1 and 2 documents away from being put on the desks of these respective agencies. So we are super close. And yeah, I don't think any extended waiting game at this point on that. Yes, Carlos.
In regards to the animal waste, the offal, is that going to be in some way planned out to plug into the recycling center project that's going to be coming down, and all that funding that's coming, to be able to do some composting with it, or some plan on that?
I'm really glad you asked that question, though, because that's been an exciting and a real encouraging piece of this. So I've been helping Living Design Group's architect get this special use permit together. And so I've had to run around to different agencies to get letters of support. You need a letter proving every single thing, right? That you're gonna have your electric utility figured out, your water utility figured out, your waste figured out, da 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 da. Solid waste is a bit of a problem for us, because the way that the regional landfill board has the uses written right now for the landfill is such that we are unable to dump industrial offal. Damn, right? Because we thought, right, you can have your own your cow that dies, or your sheep that dies, you can actually take that to the dump. But as soon as it's industrial, and we're not going to be able to dodge that designation here, so we can't. So what's the deal here, right? So this is one of the pieces of paperwork. What we're probably going to end up doing, just to get through this, I'm going to answer your compost part, but just to get through the solid waste part, is there's going to be so little of it when we're using the mobile Matanza anyway. There's going to be a little bit from the cut and wrap here. And apparently the closest landfill that is designated to take that industrial offal is just a little bit outside of Albuquerque. But all we need is a letter from them saying that we can dump and explaining our protocol. And I don't think we're going to need to go down there more than once a month with the trailer to do it. So, and if that, because I was, I didn't operate the initial mobile Matanza, but from what I've heard, that waste from that pretty much got dealt with just by the community, because people wanted to come and get the bones for their dogs or scraps for their dogs and stuff like that, and so it was just going right back out into the dogs, ending up with the poop in our community, and that's the solid waste solution. So I don't think practically that's not gonna. We just have to get the letter, but then to your point about the composting. So talking to the gentleman so we have Lorenzo Gutierrez and Edward Martinez, I believe. They're doing the county solid waste. And those gentlemen are so excited about compost. Like, they want to get it going. There's these cleanups in the Valle Vidal, and then just cleanups from people's yard. They have stacked all this brown carbon that they're ready. And they're like, look, like, we already have the bed for it. We just need to put the green nitrate on that and then cover it. Like, we're ready to go. They're saying that they can put their skid steer, at least in the beginning, and like, just they can really help facilitate the whole process of the composting in the beginning, which is really exciting. They said all we would need to do is maybe cover the cost of whatever kind of container that we're gonna have to use to like hold that off, all the move it around, but the heavy machinery they should be able to help us with. So we're gonna have to figure out, you know, that's gonna be something as far as when we look at our, you know, we don't have a lot of extra space on our 2.5. So I know we're talking about maybe even getting another subdivision attached to this so that we have more space for that sort of stuff, but maybe the county can front some of their, because they're doing another expansion out there, as you mentioned, and they may have a space. It's not like this takes a ton of space at this sort of volume. As we grow, say we get all 3 of those coolers going, and all of a sudden we can have a bigger space issue. But in the beginning, it's really not going to be that much. And so we have a letter of support attached to the special use permit from Lorenzo and Edward at Solid Waste that they want to help to develop the composting program with us. Now, this little guy, has anyone seen the biodigester thing? Has anyone seen the video of this technology yet? I'm going to go ahead and show it now. I put it in here just in case I'd have an opportunity, because I'm so blown away by this. So apparently Ski Valley has one of these, although for our type of application, you need to add some upstream technology to really break everything down. But theoretically speaking, this technology, you can take a cow, the whole thing, drop it in one end, it gets mechanically masticated down, and in 24 hours you have a usable fertilizer on the other side. And let me show you some guy who's using this. I think he's in Georgia. We applied, TCEDC applied, we got a grant written that we thought was a perfect fit, and I think we may have got that grant if we were operational. Who knows? I don't think we ever got the official reason why we did it. It was a $3 million grant pool, and we were asking for $500,000. So this technology is about a $500,000 investment. But what an amazing thing to be able to literally just take all of our, not have to worry really about what category, whatever the waste is, as long as it's bio waste, we can kind of throw it into this system. And let's see.
So skins, bones,
Check it out. Watch it.
hooves?
Everything.
That looks
It's because it has aggressive. High head.
That looks like a thing that grinds up engine blocks.
It's a hammer mill. Okay. No, it's fine. The guy's a character too. Patrick Robinette. Yeah, he's a salesman for these units in the United States. This is an Irish technology. He's a salesman in the United States for it, and he runs a facility that does, I think they do like 100 beef a week. It's kind of like a mid-scale meat processing, and that's how they deal with their waste with this system. But very, very important to mention, what Matt's getting at, it can take the hides. Because a lot of the other composting methods, like the rotary ones, that can do it in like a week or two, they don't really do the hides well, and they don't do the bones. So unless you have a hammer mill, figuring that out upstream, you have a problem. But another thing that's really neat is the skulls, because the skulls is SRM. It's the mad cow disease danger when you're talking about the spinal cord material and the skull, because it contains the brain. There's a mad cow issue, and that creates a real sensitive dumping issue. But this technology neutralizes that. The heat treatment and everything it goes through neutralizes prion, and so you don't have that issue. They're using this technology, they used it to help with the avian flu that went through. When they needed to just clean up and just get kind of contained and sanitize some of these massive chicken operations, they were employing this because it cleans it up. The pathogens end up basically being totally neutralized through the process. So it's a really fascinating technology. And then to see what comes out, this one will show what it looks like.
What is this called again?
Biodigester. Harp Incorporated is the company. That's the old company. It's called Green Star LLC, is the American company. So it was a Canadian company originally that was kind of selling in North America or United States and Canada. And then they had some bad blood with Assured Renewables, and now it's Green Star. And that's the company that Patrick is working for. And it's just like kind of like a coffee ground kind of thing that comes out. And he said the only problem with that, with that version of the end product, is that you can't spread it in high winds. If there's high winds, you just can't use it. But that you can also, I think it was going to cost us $20,000 more to get a pelletizing module, and then you can spread it like that in little pellets that don't have the issue. It's too light. It's too light and fluffy.
So would that be a source of revenue for this thing?
When you work with him, he gives you the whole the spreadsheets that show what you make depending on where, and they're like, yeah, you could use your local agriculture guys to sell to, but you're going to get a lot less than if you sell to like a Lowe's or an Ace Hardware or something that's going to put them into the 50-pound and then sell it like that. That's where you're going to make your highest margins on the fertilizer. So let me see here. Any other questions on the land, what we're calling the landfill, the bigger project? Any other questions? All right, we can definitely come back to it, but in the interest of time, let me keep rolling. So, and this is a lot shorter. So this is just in the backyard. This is what has operated historically a few times. The little building just to the east of us. And this is what we're looking to do. Turn it all the space in there, because right now it's kind of like half offices and storage. Turn all that into a USDA approved washable type environment. That's going to add 400 square foot of production space, because it was really tight to do this work before. I think tight even to maybe like a little bit dangerous is kind of how I was feeling about that space. It'll get updated electrical, including 3-phase power, updated plumbing, and a bathroom will get removed. There's not going to be bathrooms in there anymore to really make the processing space work well. And then we're going to add an additional 150 square feet of freezer space that is contiguous. Because right now, so we can kind of see this picture, right now we do have this split freezer and cooler unit out there. But it's a little cumbersome because you get finished with your packing, and then you have to go down this thing, and then, you know, this is all chain link fenced and with the lock and all that, and then you have to come back in, and you're having to do that on a little wheelie thing or carry big heavy things a pretty long distance. And so this is new. And so it'll go straight in, you know, we get the the carcasses are stored here, they come through their production flow, and then they'll go straight into the freezer, and then the loadout should be a lot easier. And these stay, but then you have to move over. These right now are sitting about like there. I think there's only 5 feet or something. And so these 2 units, we have to put a little bit of concrete pad over here and move those over. That was a lot quicker, that one. That one just sitting there. It's like, it is some low-hanging fruit, you know. Like, it is a facility that can do a lot. And the vision for this in the long term, short term, right, we need to use it to show proof of concept, get USDA inspected, provide the service to the extent that we can provide there, get the mobile Matanza working again, figure out the crew to an extent, at least a couple key figures in our crew. And then we move out to the bigger project. And then I think this becomes, at that point, is no longer USDA inspected. The one out there at the landfill, that's where all the USDA magic happens. This is if you don't need it or don't care, and maybe services are rendered a little more cheaply here, and it's for your backyard, one pig or one beef you have for your family. You don't need to worry about your USDA label, and for wild game processing. And this, I'm thinking maybe even it's only seasonal. It's something that operates from, say, you know, the high time of the year for animal harvest, so August or September starting, and then go through maybe February. And with targeting those months, can rest assured, especially if we do some value-added product in there, that we can actually make it generate a little bit of money. I worry about this thing generating money as a year-round staffed project, but maybe during those other months, it's a wash and pack for veggies and stuff like that on the earlier side of the harvest season. So that's kind of the idea. Anyone have any questions or concerns on 1021 yet?
And that would function off of the carcasses coming from the mobile Matanza, right?
that has to, or, again, what I'm seeing this is the backyard kill. So, because we're not, in the USDA inspected, we won't be able to take it if, because there's a lot of people in the community that like to kill their animal, skin it, have it into its quarters or whatnot, and then they want to take it to a processor. We won't be able to do that under USDA.
Yeah.
Or we can. I'm kind of really against doing that. I think we need to focus over there. Because all of a sudden you start doing that, you have all this stuff with the USDA about making sure they don't commingle, and say that, you send one of your workers out with this frog to deal with that came in and he has to go change all, it becomes a mess. Whereas I think this place is perfect for all that. All that stuff happens here. Bring your farm kill. You don't have to pay your kill fee. You have to pay a little bit just to get it cut and wrapped. And we can figure out how to get your animals in there one way or another. Obviously, the most efficient way is if they do go into that mobile Matanza and they're already up on the rail, and then the rails are straight across and into the cooler in there. But it's not, it has to happen that way. Wild game, people show up with wild game. People show up with 3 dudes that put it in 3 different backpacks, and it's like, are you kidding me? And they're like, we're paying you, bro. Like, oh my God. And you're pulling out broadheads. For anyone who's done wild game processing, the stuff that you encounter in wild game processing is wild. And that's why I would say never in a million years, wild game especially, would go to our USDA inspected plant. But for here, I think that's a great fit. I think that's what this makes sense for. Yes, sir.
I just want to say that's a really good idea for repurposing that facility right there. And that will serve another component of the local population. And also, I think it would also help with continuing that traditional use of home slaughter and
Yes.
traditional activity of people butchering their own.
Yes, agree with you 100%. And I'll just add to that perhaps TCEDC in our educational function, that we even take on a little more of that training, like maybe we even do some on-site training with our teams that we develop. Like I want to have, if that organizational chart that I showed, if that comes to fruition, I mean, we're going to have a pretty lethal team of skilled folks that, probably some of them will be really excited about the idea of hosting classes and going to someone's ranch and let's put up 4 lambs for you guys, and then we can come process them there, So I think this opens up, I think, a huge opportunity for education in the heritage kind of sense. Whereas the landfill project is going to be more of education in the professional development kind of sense, and that they interact to some degree too. But
It's a good division because people using this aren't interested in getting the highest dollar for the meat because they're going to be taking them home, giving it to their families. That over there is a separate, commercial operation that people going there are interested in get their highest bang for the buck, the best price for the product. Whereas this serves a different function, but this also, I see this really serving a good purpose in maintaining that traditional agricultural component of the valley. In regards to home, providing food for your own family.
Absolutely. Yeah, when we look at we have like 6 main whys for this project. That's one of the whys. That retaining the knowledge and hopefully building on it and kind of like recapturing, because that's beyond. It's like, my grandpa, he could kill the animal himself. Those guys they shaved the pigs back then, and then they would use all of the skin, they would use the feet. They were even to the extent where they flushed the casings themselves and made blood morcillas, right? Blood sausage out of the casing. They didn't waste. They were pros at the snout to tail processing. They used it all. Everything got used, yeah. So, yes, Nat.
Well, I just have a suggestion. Instead of calling it the landfill project,
Instead
That's
of a
an
landfill
internal-
project, call it the high desert project. Something besides the landfill.
I
Gorge,
the point is very well taken. We just kind of gave you our internal thing, and we should have made the like the whole Wizard of Oz like curtain thing. So sorry for the lack of euphemism, but hopefully we'll bring it back. We'll talk. Well, actually, we'll talk about that.
Yes, we
do need to think about how we're talking about this. Yeah, the landfill project is, you're right, it's not very effective.
It's because it's landfill road.
Yeah.
So, and then this is Salazar, that's why we call this one Salazar Road, so no pun intended there.
Yeah, that was just wild, that was just random. Okay, so again, in the interest of time, again, we can come back to some, but let's just get, I have two little categories just real quick. They can be fast. So this New Mexico grown thing could be really helpful, I think, for folks who are trying to start marketing their meat, because they'll put you on like their database, they'll let you use their logo. So it'll allow you to access those institutional buyers. I think that's the main thing, is it allows you, whenever there's food to table, farm to school, farm to table, these kinds of initiatives, this will be what allows you to get into that marketing stream. And it's generally like subsidized. It's generally the kind of thing where you just say your price for your ground beef and they just write the check kind of thing. So it's a way to kind of control a pretty good price point on your product. I did it a little bit, a Colorado version, when I was operating my plant in Colorado, and it was nice. It was like, I never had such big orders for ground beef at one time than through Farm to School initiative, but in Colorado. But there's a few things you have to do to get on there. There are approved supplier programs. But now this got a little contentious at the last meeting. I think there is a way around this point, because it says you need your FSS distribution license, the Form 520 thing. We're pretty sure, we talked with the policy people directly about this whole program about a month ago or 2 months ago. And she was saying, yeah, as long as there's no drop in the cold chain. That's what they're worried about. This is what they're worried about, this scenario right here. That they come to us as a USDA inspected processing facility, we process it, we put our label on it, and then it goes into their private personal freezers. There's nothing being documented, there's nothing professional about the cold chain maintenance, and then they take that too. So there's like this blank spot, there's this break in the traceability and that cold chain continuity. And so what it seems like is going to work is the workaround from you as a grower needing to have that is we're going to have that as the processor and just use us as your delivery mechanism. So if you got a good account with La Montanita, you're raising 20 beef, they want to take these beef to La Montanita, well, even if you have your own freezer, it's not recommended and you won't be able to get to this program unless you have written how you're going to maintain that cold chain, so you can have registered wholesalers controlling that product the whole way through. And we can provide that function. So that's how I think we get through that piece. You're not going to be able to get away without getting a 1 million minimum liability product, and that is not that expensive. I think that's a $100, $150 policy, probably a month. And then this is hey, August, you made it. This is the kind of meat of what you need to do as far as actually raising your animals, and it's 3 of the 4. You need to be born and raised in New Mexico, fed, finished in New Mexico, slaughtered, processed in New Mexico, and the animal ownership was maintained by a New Mexico producer. So you have to have 3 of the 4 of those. So there is a little bit of wiggle room in it being so perfectly born and raised and everything here, but not a whole lot. All right, now this is the last thing before we're going to turn it over to the regenerative ag program part, which was just, I got to attend this really neat webinar last month on tallow. So this is for anybody who's stacking fat. It's one of these byproducts that's just really tricky to figure out how to create some value out of it, while the market for these products, beauty products, or even human consumption products for cooking, etc., that market is really growing and really booming right now. Until recently in this region, don't know of anybody who had figured it out under the USDA inspection, but this lovely couple, Chris and Jessica Musgrave from Wiggins, Colorado, so this is kind of like Denver suburb-ish kind of area, they figured it out. And so they said it was something about $20,000 and a whole year of research and development where they just, had their kettle and their batches and figuring out the straining processes and and talking to everybody they could talk to. Jennifer Martin was involved. She's got a PhD in like related meat science. She knew all about the biochemistry of all this, and they were consulting with her. And so they spent just a whole year of figuring out how to really nail the product and the variability in product. They are really confirming how different it is if you're using a batch of corn-fed cattle versus a grass-fed cow. Just how different of a process they have to employ to get the product to come out right. And so they could be a tremendous resource for anybody who is stacking fat. They can put the private label on it for you so that you can go and sell your tallow on the market. And this is the only one I know of anywhere remotely in our region that's doing it. Flower Hill Institute is who hosted and presented that webinar. And they are great. If anyone hasn't checked out Flower Hill Institute, I think it's flowerhill.institute.com or maybe .org. But there's a wealth of information for small-scale meat processing on that website, and a lot of it's in the form of these conversations with experts at the different parts of the field. So, yeah, if anyone, write it down or reach back out to me, and I'll report all this information to you. But go ahead now and pivot to the Regenerative Ranching Mentorship Program. Abby Warman.
And Gabby Kretschmer.
And Jack Kretschmer.
Yeah, thanks so much, Lucas, for taking the time to walk us through the Matanza, the landfill, and the Salazar project. TCEDC is running a regenerative ranching mentorship program. Last year was our pilot year, so we're going into our second year in 2026. We're going to show you guys a little video about the program, and then Gabby is going to fill in the gaps. I'm Abby, I'm the programs manager at TCEDC, and
I'm Gabby, I'm the outreach coordinator.
so we have this little video for you guys from this past year. Just how it works. Program is a paid program that pairs 10 experienced ranchers with 10 beginning ranchers for a program that spans from March to September of 2026. It consists of 40 hours of on-ranch work where the mentees are working on the mentors' ranches and 15 hours of paid educational workshop time.
The movement that TCEDC, the Community Economic Development Corporation, is promoting here to involve young people is imperative to the care of the land and also imperative to the holding of the land in families.
My family's been there for generations. My grandfather, my father, we all did this, and it's dying. So it needs to happen. People need to learn this stuff again.
So the program was inspired by feedback from ranchers in our community that we work with, who have indicated to us that they would like support in having paid labor on their ranches, as well as a concern for the preservation of agricultural land in Taos and the surrounding counties.
I want people to come out and see how precious and valuable our natural resources are.
It's been really awesome to go to these workshops and meet other ranchers and farmers around and kind of get an idea of who's around in the community doing this stuff.
So today's all about this, again, low stress livestock handling. This is better on your pocketbook, this is better on your stress level, and it's going to be better on your animal's stress level. Using animals following each other, you can really get them to have momentum. When we approach that shoulder point and pass it, they're going to want to move away from us. Okay? When we're in front of a balance point and we're going towards them, it's likely they're going to turn and go away from us.
Ranching is really inherent to the Taos community. It helps to protect the local watershed, it helps soil health, it helps the local economy, it sustains traditional cultural ways of existing, and it promotes food sovereignty in the region.
It's really important that we're able to get back to the basics. learn how to be able to harvest medicines, to harvest your food.
It definitely produces a really valuable lifestyle and also really good food, which you get to enjoy with your family and use as a trading medium and share with the community as you can.
I feel very passionate about the idea of growing food systems locally, like from within, in order to nourish each other and to be more resilient.
Being able to take care of the waters, take care of the lands is very important. And if we're not taking care of them and using them beneficially, then we're just going to end up destroying this area. And it's such a gorgeous area to live in.
This land needs to be taken care of, and learning how to do it properly is a big part of it. It's not so easy, I think, to find this information, and having somebody with years of experience is just like giving you a shortcut.
For the participants, a huge lasting impact is the relationships that they built, and that was the biggest feedback that we got.
Martine's a younger farmer going to grow up, and he's learning from me what I learned from my father, and I'm also learning from Martine.
I learned a lot from Leo and then just from my others in the program. There's definitely some challenges, but you just put the work in to be able to get it done.
Just the ripple effect of educating people about ranching and why ranching is so important, specifically in this area, and why regenerative ranching is important for keeping the land in this area alive and keeping the community in this area alive.
I see this program growing in the next several years. I'd like to see more high school students joining us. If we just all work together and learn about one another, I think it just helps everybody.
Kudos to True Kids One, who did the video.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, True Kids One did that video. And if you guys, I realized I didn't really bridge the connection. If you guys are wondering, why are they telling us about a ranching mentorship program when I came here to learn about the Matanza? It's because we want more ranchers to be producing meat that stays in the community and keeps more dollars in the community. Gabby's going to give us a little rundown of a few more nuggets of information about the program.
Yeah, thank you guys all for coming out tonight. My name is Gabby Kretschmer, and I'm the Outreach Coordinator at TCEDC. And I had the pleasure of helping facilitate the program last year. It's our pilot year. And Abby Warman, our Programs Manager, and our previous Programs Director, Jesse Hook, designed this program from its inception. And then Abby implemented it under the USDA's Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program grant that we were rewarded. And so yeah, this will be our second year running the program. And as a quick recap, it is a 55-hour, 6-month program that runs from March through September. It is a paid mentorship, so there's a stipend of $1,150, which comes out to about $20.90 per hour upon completion of the 55 hours. We are seeking mentees with 0 to 9 years of ranching experience who are located in Taos, Mora, Rio Arriba, and Colfax counties, who are eager to learn under an experienced rancher through 40 hours of hands-on ranch work on their mentor's property. Mentees will also commit to 15 hours of paid educational workshops. Those include an orientation that will be in March, that will feature a stockmanship training, a mid-season check-in in May, and then a graduation in September where mentees will give a brief presentation about their experience. Beyond those required sessions, participants can select from various workshops to fulfill the remaining 15 hours. And those workshops will be hosted by TCEDC and our partners in De La Tierra Coalition. Examples of some of the topics that might be covered include soil health, rotational grazing and electric fencing, meat marketing, And last year we were super lucky to have some incredible guest speakers, such as Dave Carter from the Flower Hill Institute, and George Witten from Sweetgrass Co-op. So yeah, it's kind of a well-rounded program with some interactive learning and hands-on applied education, I guess. So yeah, the Menti applications will open December 15th, and then they will close in January 15th, probably, yeah. And you can apply by visiting our website at tcedc.org, and there's a header for the Regenerative Ranching Mentorship Program, and there will be a live link for the Menti application on December 15th, and there's also a hub of information about the program there. You can also grab either me or Abby's business card at the table over there. We also have flyers you can take home. So yeah, I'll hand it over to Abby.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, and there is minimum age to participate is 16, and last year we had people, I think our age range was like, youngest was 24 and the oldest was mid-50s, so we had a pretty wide age range. It really is just the years in agriculture that is the qualifies you as a beginning farmer or rancher, so like 0 to 9 years. You're able to participate as a mentee in this program. But if anyone in this room knows anyone who this might pertain to, it might not be yourself, but maybe it's a sibling or a friend or a family member, yeah, please pass along information, and you can pass along our contact information as well. Does anyone have any questions? Carlos?
The previous mentees get to participate again as a mentee? Do previous mentees get to participate again as a mentee?
That's a really good question. I wish, but that is not the way that the grant was written. That was something that a former mentee brought up recently, was he was saying that we have around 2 for leveling up for the mentees who've done it before, which is good feedback. But unfortunately, no repeats under this current grant. Any other questions? Carlos was a mentor also.
We also have a sign-up sheet over there if you're interested in learning more or participating.
Sweet. Thank you. Well, thanks for bearing with us, guys. Spread the word. Spread the good word about the mentorship program.
Yeah.
Lucas, do you have anything else for us?
It's a listening session. Hit us.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you have anything, of course, hit us. We're here until there's no more burning sense of question or concern from y'all.
So
I'm still catching up on everything. So at the end, I heard you say $6 a pound break even. So how does that number fit in with a guy who's raising cows and he wants to sell cows?
It doesn't. That's our concern. That's our concern and our business model, and we need to be at our price point where we need to be. So let me just tell you, anyone who's been watching the cattle market at all in the last 2 or 3 years has just watched something completely unprecedented happen, right? For a basic commodity to virtually double in its price over the periods of a span of like 3 or 4 years is virtually unheard of, and I don't care about what commodity you're talking about. I mean, this is a completely unsustainable, crazy thing that happened that threw the industry into kind of some chaos. For the good side, right, we can talk, it's all about the players, right? How does this affect the different players? I mean, this has been great for cattle ranchers who are able to hold on to their herds, especially until about this point. We finally, in the last month-ish, seeing the futures market start to soften a little bit. But that was a rally of like 4 straight years of it virtually, just like everyone was like, this is a bubble, this is a bubble, this has to. But the fact of the matter is our cattle supplies are at a 70-year low. But again, you know, that's, so the people who are holding on to cattle right now, I mean, it's like, yes, you have such a valuable asset in your portfolio. How does this impact the processors? The processors are, oh shit, right? Like, we make contracts, and this has gone up so fast. So we're having to pay this, yet our processing is maybe, not catching up quite yet with how fast these prices are going up if you're buying things at the market rate. And so when I did my initial business plan for this whole project, I was looking at a model that was going to utilize primarily, and I still am looking at a model that's going to primarily utilize the cold cattle from the community, which when I wrote the business plan in 2022, you were still getting coals at about 80 cents, 90 cents. In my mind, I did the rough number of $1 on the live weight. So, typically a dry cow is going to weigh 1,200 to 1,400 pounds. And so I had in my mind $1,200 to $1,400 is what I paid for that. Now, when you crunch all your numbers, your labor and everything, you look at your yields, you have to go through a whole formula. You end up, the cost of that beef was $3 something, right? And then I would go and I would sell that at $5, $6 to make my cut. If I sold it to a wholesaler, I might be a little under that, because I'm trying to protect their margin a little bit, because they're having a hard time moving it at 7, 8, right? This is 4 years ago, 3 and 4 years ago. So now that same coal animal is worth $1.60. I just checked today. La Junta is hovering at $1.50, $1.60, and this is with a little bit of a softening. So I think if you went a month to 2 months ago, it was solid at $1.60. So that commodity, in fact, over a 4-year-ish period, in fact doubled as its raw price. And so now, you put that through the equation, it's about $6. That's even including taking out the tenderloins and adding those in, which actually offsets that cost down a little bit. So say we didn't sell the tenderloins, that's actually $6.15. I mean, I could do it. I'm not going to bore everybody having to punch my numbers in my spreadsheet right now. But, so that's the thing. When I was looking at this initially, I'm like, oh yeah, we got margin, we'll be fine. We're going to process these animals fast. And now all of a sudden, with that raw product going up so much, it's like, oh crap, are we still going to be okay when we need to get this at retail end? Because they're going to have to be retailing it at $10. Let's be honest, at least. Unless we're just doing even yet more magical subsidizing and eating these margins internally, which is kind of the neat thing about this project. Let's just be honest here. I mean, it's so interesting and liberating at a level for me to talk from this perspective and when I came from the private perspective, because from the private perspective, I was all alone, and if I started hurting myself, I was just going to be quickly out of business. Within this framework, this is a communal effort, we have politicians interested, we have this tremendous community support, we have, maybe some private funders who would maybe shore it up, right? It's a completely different framework from which to deliver the service. And I think that's great. I think it's a huge opportunity for us. We're in a position where we can kind of maybe have our cake and eat it too, because this floor plan, let me get to it. Not that one, that one's a little heavier and a little more complicated, but roughly this idea, the machine that can do this, that's roughly a $4 million price tag. And that's a $4 million subsidy. And so I'll just be very frank, and I'm not trying to get the chuckle, but from where I've come from, I would be a dipshit if I couldn't operate this and make this go with a $4 million subsidy. I didn't have any subsidies where I came from. You could consider it a little bit like my dad, right? My dad kind of had a building in the land and kind of, so I had like $150,000 or $200,000 of some in-kind support to start spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to build what we did. And the risk was 100% me and my father, right? And we didn't even have a lot of skill and knowledge about it. We learned a ton of it, as we went. So to have $4 million, this is us. This is congressionally directed spending primarily that's helping us do all this. So there's interest in the region politically to get this done, and we better not, right, mess it up, because it's a huge advantage in the marketplace. And that's where, the hardliner private market type people are going to maybe come in and be really upset about this, right? Because this is, in a way, it's unfair competition. In a way, it's a market cheat. It's an advantage, right? But
it's very local. I mean,
major producers, we can't touch what they're turning out, right? So this is very local. It's very, finest.
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's not like we're going to move on and become, one of the big meat producers.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. This is around this whole region. We know that the supply of this service is just lagging so far behind the demand of the service. And so this just kind of helps, at least, because it's hard for private people to do things at this scale, because who's just got, the $4 or $5 million lying around to do it. So.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, John.
In regards to the landfill facility, do you have like a vision? Is it strictly going to be a processing facility, or can you like bridge the gap between grocers as far as like delivery, reaching out to restaurants? I mean, is it strictly just processing in the end, or?
No, we absolutely plan on being distribution too.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard, maybe people heard, we had our truck stolen. So that didn't help. So we have to figure out, our delivery, but maybe in the short term, maybe we even rent, maybe we don't, or we contract the deliveries and stuff. It might be, so like the Valley, La Montanita Co-op, La Montanita Co-op, they send trucks all the way from Albuquerque, Santa Fe, all the way into the San Luis Valley to Moscow, north of Alamosa, right, to pick up the local food that the San Luis Valley has to offer, and they backhaul. I imagine we maybe end up on that delivery path as we start getting some volume if we can't figure out the delivery. I think that's going to be a short-term thing. So I think it makes sense because, again, this freezer, while it's big, this freezer is 20 feet. It's pretty close to the size of this room. SK's is really close to the size of this room. It's 20 by 30 by 12, this freezer. And while that's big, and I can hold a lot, once we start moving from that, I think that this model, I don't think we're going to ever have a problem with that freezer space. But once we get into this model, we're going to start having some freezer space. But that's why I think we need to control distribution as we go. And fresh product is in a truck and it's already boom.
That's what I was picturing.
2 months.
Yeah, just straight to the store. Yeah.
So, Lucas, I'm going to tell a little story with you.
Make sure you got the mic.
The first time I ever met Lucas was a long time ago. We were developing Sweetgrass Co-op, and your dad was kind of one of the founding members along with me and several other guys. And I met Lucas, and his dad was telling us about, he moved back from, what, New York? Yeah. And telling us about what he was going to do. And, attitudes in those days, and probably still today, get this, guy from New York coming here and he's gonna open this processing plant. And I didn't give it much credit. I didn't think much about it. But if Taos and this community wants this thing to work, this man right here is going to make it work. Because I watched him do that. If you didn't know how to get there, it's a pain in the ass to get to their place, but a lot of people got there. And the quality of products that started coming out of that place was unbelievable. So, Lucas he's a smart guy. And when you start talking about marketing and things like that, and expanding on marketing, get this thing running and then let him run with those ideas, because it's going to be big. And, I think we're all seeing this in the cattle industry right now, commercial cattle industry. I mean, we've got a Tyson plant that shut down in Nebraska, and Amarillo scaled back down to one shift. And it's an attempt to chokehold us. It's an attempt to get us back where they want us on cattle prices. And for those of you that don't know, the big packers are the enemy, absolute enemy, as far as I'm concerned. So small regional plants that diversify themselves and produce lots of great different products like this is gonna be more profitable for local producers than selling your calves at Bahana, sending them to the feed yard, and, you're gonna take whatever that is, whatever that sale barn profit is. Here, you can integrate your own herds with a situation like this, so this needs to happen. The politics of this thing, it needs to happen. It's been needed for a long time. This is one of the best ideas. I'll tell you what, this is a really cool idea. I mean, Lucas showed me what's out there. And when it's all put together, you're gonna be amazed at how well it works. And the opportunities that it's gonna create that we haven't even thought of yet.
Thanks, John, for that. Wow, I'm flattered. Yeah, I think probably most people watching from the outside at the beginning figured out that it was gonna flop. Like we didn't really have the background. I mean, we brought in local butchers and like learned on the fly from all the talent in the community, and really I grew up on this farm. I helped my grandpa chase these cows around and all this stuff, but never did I have the bootstrapping experience as I did trying to get the thing going. And so again, just kind of like reiterate, like John's saying, like this is an incredible opportunity. There's a lot of good design. There's a lot of durability. There's a lot of like we're able to start already kind of at the 60-yard line here. As opposed to like if you looked at me 15 years ago, I was starting at the 5-yard line. So we wanted to go. It's in a very, very, I would say, strong position to go. We just got to get through it's really kind of like the bureaucratic aspects of it, but we've made a ton of progress in the last year on that, and I think, as Mercedes said, I think 2026, we're going to see some concrete things that are going to all of a sudden be like, wow, it's coming together. So.
I want to make sure everyone understood that landfill, until we rename it, and Salazar here. Salazar is going to be proof of concept for us. So we need to show this model in a smaller scale so that people understand where we're trying to head while landfill happens. I mean, we have a lot more red tape at landfill because we're sandwiched in the middle between the town and the county, where we're at their mercy for one move or the other, and I think we've made a lot of progress. I think we have great allies. I think that the town and the county have really, pushed for this, have really supported this, and so we've met a lot of leeway, and so we need to show proof of concept here, and so that we're hoping, will be up and going before landfill goes, and people get to experience the concept.
Do you have a prospective date to get the Salazar?
We can't do the dates. And the policy is just because we don't want to hold animals, and then there's just so many like unforeseen things that come at us with this. I mean, and this isn't to throw anybody under the bus, but I'm just going to tell you, like there was a joint county meeting in March that dealt with this issue that I've been talking about at other listening sessions, right? And literally handshakes are being had and conversations, and like we should be able to lick this in a couple weeks, and that turns into 6 months. And that wasn't us, trust me, like the emails were going to the appropriate desk and nudging was happening, to the extent of not becoming like just ridiculously obnoxious and that's, Mercedes says this sandwiching between the town and county. Now, one real big, great development on this whole thing was that for an earlier phase of the funding, we had utilized the county, so like these 2 units, right? That was utilizing the county as fiscal sponsorship for that. And then everything else has been town. That land is town, the town is administering the current $600,000 grant, et cetera, et cetera. But now we're doing the governmental to government transfer of these from the county to the town. So that's gonna clarify, at least make part of it a little more streamlined, right? So we're working on it, but when we're beholden, because of this anti-donation clause in New Mexico, we're beholden to another municipal entity to basically move, right? So any kind of procurement thing, any kind of decision, we're all filtering it through them. It doesn't make for an efficient development process.
And so landfill, we have more control over. So obviously, we're not the contractors, we're not the builders, but it is in our land. We did secure funding for it separately. And so, yeah, here at 1021. So this will move fast. Even the contractor, Debbie Patterson, has basically not cringed on working through the winter. And so that was a big surprise for us. It was like, okay, if you're willing to, then if we have the funds, then he can move forward. And so we've got to go ahead here. We're moving a lot faster here. And that will again happen a lot sooner than this one is going to. We're finally making progress though on landfill. So we're finally moving.
Yeah, you could consider this project as essentially having all this permitting done. Yeah, it's just like the design and lining up the builders and all that. It's just kind of like we gotta get the money and implement it. Whereas, still it's like these two major permits, the special use permit and the advanced wastewater permit, and those are big bureaucratic deals. So. Anything else, folks? Thank you all for coming. I don't know if there's any closing words.
No, I just want to thank everybody. Again, your support has been everything. There's